Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Do you find yourself saying the word should a lot in your sex life? Like, I should have done that differently, or I should be reacting this way to my husband's touch, or I shouldn't have this problem that I have. If you find yourself saying the word should in your sex life, then this is the episode for you. Today, we're going to be talking about what you should actually be doing, which is stop shoulding on yourself. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, the sex and intimacy podcast for Catholic women. My name is Ellen Holloway. I am a Catholic speaker and coach who specializes in sex and marital intimacy, and I am on a mission to help you actually enjoy and desire good, holy sex with your spouse. And today, joining me, I have my amazing semi-regular co-host, Kathleen Chavanis.
All right. Here we are to talk about what you should be doing.
And what you shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be shitting.
So let's lay the scene of really like what we're talking about here is, let's say last night was a go day. Maybe you're avoiding pregnancy right now, but last night would have been an available day and you were just you're feeling pretty tired and you just went to sleep. And you wake up the next morning and you're like, we should have had sex last night. We should have. It was an available day. Why didn't I? I should have made myself available. I should have initiated. I should have said something. I should have done this. I should have worn this. I should have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically,
like the story of my life. I relate a little too well with this scenario. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
This honestly, and I'm not trying to make myself sound better than you, Kathleen, by any means.
You are. It's
this.
Okay.
This was me 5 years ago.
Yeah.
100% me. And I I don't want this to come out weird, but I've moved on from this, right?
So good. That's really good.
So I just want you to know it's possible.
I believe it. Yeah. I'm just on a different timeline.
We are all on our own timeline.
We're all on our own timeline, our own journeys.
But anyway, so, I mean, the way that you responded to that, Kathleen, it just tells me that a lot of the people listening, I think, are just yeah, that literally happened last night. That's,
yeah.
I know that exact scenario. And I know it well, too, because I remember it still. This I should have done all of these things. But what we want to focus on in this episode is, rather than telling yourself what you should have done and beating yourself up about it and putting a lot of pressure on yourself, let's instead look at why didn't you? And what is the underlying, whether it's a mindset thing or a, emotional intimacy thing, or what's the underlying issue that we actually should address, to where when you have those opportunities, you don't wake up the next morning going, oh, I should have done that. You either lovingly take advantage of those opportunities or recognize that you're not in the right mindset for it, and that's totally okay. So I think one of the most important questions to ask yourself, if you're in this situation, the next morning you wake up, is did you want to have sex? Did you want to have sex that night? And if the answer is no, then that's where we need to start. Right. Is why? And this is a question of pure curiosity. This is not a condemning question of why didn't you want to have sex with your husband?
Right.
But it's genuinely why did you not feel like having sex? What what was underlying? What were you missing? What were you thinking about? What would sex have felt like if you had had sex last night? Would it have been a big show that you had to like really put yourself out there and put a lot of work into it? Would it have felt kind of fake? Would it have, would you just have been so tired that it's like, I just don't even think I can muster up the energy to get there? Would it have just not really been all that enjoyable? Would it have been painful? You know, like what are those thoughts?
Yeah.
If we were sitting down in a one-on-one coaching call, I would like get those thoughts from you.
Yeah.
I'm like ready to just start coaching Kathleen on this episode.
I mean, you could. Yeah. We could. Do you want to know what live coaching is like with Ellen? That's what we could really make this podcast about. We'll just do a live coaching.
There we go. We should do that sometime.
We should.
Maybe picking like a less
plenty of things you could coach me. So, you know.
That would be fun. But yeah. So tell me, Kathleen, like, not to really get into like live coaching here, but like,
listen, we could do
you know, when you do wake up that next morning, like what are those thoughts that are like swimming around in your head, and how do they make you feel?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, when I have that experience happen, that situation happen, it's a lot of time guilt for like not, you know, kind of offering myself on like a green day, right? Because then it's like, oh shoot, well, if I don't, like everything's on a timeline, right? You like always feel the pressure of a clock, like a ticking clock. It's like whether you're in your follicular phase, right? And you're like waiting for, you know, your ovulatory phase to start and you're kind of like keeping an eye on it. Or if you're in your luteal phase and you're waiting on your period, right? Like it's like, I only have so many days that are usable here. And it's like, why didn't I, there's guilt over not offering myself to my husband when we only have so many days, you know? That's typically what I feel. But I would say, to answer your question of, yeah, well, what did you want to have sex and why not? I'm always so tired.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. And I mean, that's usually the thing is like, it's just like, oh my gosh, to even get into the mental space to be able to have like enjoyable intercourse just feels exhausting when you're like that tired, you know? I will say also, like, I think we all need to look at the situations that we're in, right? I've got 5 kids. One of them is waking up between midnight and 3 every single night and demanding to come into my room with me. You know what I mean? And then she's grabbing my boob for comfort all the rest of the night. So like my sleep is not great, right? And it hasn't been for 11 years, right? Like it has not been great. And so I know that is probably a contributing factor when you're in a stage.
Probably.
I mean, it's definitely a contributing factor.
That is a huge contributing factor, Kathleen.
So it's one of those things like, okay, well, let's think, how can I help my sleep? Well, when you're dealing with babies, right, and like toddlers, that seems like a really hard, I mean, literally last night, I had 2 children up between 3:30 and 5:30. Like they were just like I was just awake with from 3:30 to 5:30, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? Tell the 2-year-old and the, you know, and the other one just like, go figure it out yourselves. I gotta sleep. Like you can't do that. You know what I mean? So I think maybe, I don't know, but maybe it ends up being, okay, I've got to go to bed earlier. Or maybe it ends up being, you've got to take a nap during the day and put like the oldest one in charge for, or while you take a, you know, like, are those easy things to do? No. Am I going to do them? Probably not. Should I do them? Yes. but like so I think we all need to look at the stage that we're in and all the contributing factors to the tiredness, right? I'm also like a little under the weather right now. Like I've got like cold mucus like building. So that's not helping either. But what is it that's putting us in that space, right? Is it anxiety? Is there like a lot of stuff on your plate, right? Like maybe like, financial anxiety or just a lot of things that are keeping you up at night, or at least just taking up too much space in your brain that you can't enjoy sex. Like you can't get, right? Like for women, our brain is our biggest sex organ, right? It's like,
yep.
Like what's taking up space in your brain and how can you fix those things? Or can you fix those things and how can you fix them? I think everything is fixable.
Or even not like maybe changing the word fix to how can you alleviate like the space that those things are taking up in your brain, right?
Right.
So how can you take those off of your plate and put them on someone else's plate? Or, can you sit down for 15 minutes and put a plan together for some of those things to where this mental space it's taking up takes less space? Because this happens to us all the time. Is that we've got some kind of like a thing that needs to be done. Like for me, it's like when I have to do taxes and I don't even do my own taxes. Like I have a tax preparer, but I still have to like collect everything.
That is so stressful. I hate that.
And it's just so stressful. And I stress myself out. And it's like, it takes me like a half hour. Like it's just not.
Yeah. Right.
But I like stress over it for like weeks. Thinking about like, oh my gosh, I have to do that and I have to collect it. I have to make sure I get all the papers. And what if I forget one? And then I'll have to pay the tax preparer to fix things because I forgot to give him one of the papers, all of those kind of things.
Yeah.
And, it's like I stress myself out for weeks on something that takes a half an hour.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's really just like carving out that 15 to 30 minutes to like make a plan for those things.
Do what you need to
do.
And
like, or like plan the time that you're I'm going to do this Friday afternoon. I've got an hour. I'm going to just knock it out then. Right. So so sometimes it's not necessarily about like checking the things off, fixing them, but just like if you can have a solid plan of when you're going to take care of those things, then it can take that mental load off of those issues. Like if you're thinking about, okay, I got to get, new uniforms for soccer or maybe school. We're recording this in early August.
Oh my gosh. You want to talk about financial stress? Oh my gosh.
Try putting your kids in a brand new school.
Brand new school which doesn't have a used uniform sale yet. Buying brand new uniforms, like for 3 kids, and then an entire homeschool curriculum for one of them. Like, holy. No wonder I'm not sleeping. Forget the kids. Goodness gracious.
But yeah, so I really like what you were saying there, Kathleen, about like recognizing the state that you're in. I like to talk a lot about, we complain about, oh my gosh, my libido disappeared. I just don't want to have sex anymore. And it's like, ultimately it comes down to, it's not a hormonal issue, friends. It's really not. It is sleep, diet, and like movement and stress. Like, are you sleeping well? Are you getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep? Because if you're not, then your body doesn't have the energy to put forth sexual desire. It just doesn't. If you're not eating well, if you're not eating enough protein, particularly, which ladies, 90 to 100 grams is where you need to. I was recently having a conversation with somebody and I was just like, how's your diet? Because we were talking about libido. And she's kind of like, oh, it's fine. I eat generally healthy. Although there was a time several years ago when I was working with a fitness coach and I was trying to hit 90 grams of protein a day and I was feeling a lot better then. And I'm like, that's right there. Like, that's what we need to be focusing on.
I should intake.
For her, for diet, right. And that's probably you too. I'm just saying.
No, it's absolutely.
Like 100 grams of protein is actually, it's kind of hard. It's hard to do. You have to really, that's 30 to 40 grams per meal for your like 3 meals. That's a lot of grams of protein.
That's a lot
of Greek yogurt. It's a lot of
That's
chicken.
true. Honestly,
But you can do it. It is possible. And I guarantee you are going to feel loads better. And then, stress management, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about with like what's taking up space in your head, managing that.
Yeah.
And moving your body. It doesn't even have to be like it doesn't have to be like workouts every day. Like it can walks, like just like getting your body moving. Those, if we can get those pillars like 100%, you're going to feel incredible. But sometimes your state of life is just like at this particular time, one or more of those is just not going to be possible to manage. That doesn't mean we have to give up on all of them.
Right.
We'll be back with the episode in just a minute. Before we get to the rest of the episode, I have a question for you. Is sexual pleasure something that seems just out of grasp? Or maybe something you've never or rarely actually experienced? Sexual pleasure, and orgasm in particular, is something that a lot of Catholic women struggle with. Whether it's because of a misunderstanding of the point of sexual pleasure and God's design for it, or a lifetime of suppressing anything to do with sex because it was bad or dirty, maybe shame from past sexual experiences, or maybe just that no one ever stopped to walk you through an in-depth anatomical diagram and tell you about how female pleasure works. Whatever it is, orgasm is a confusing jumble of anatomy, mindset, partner dynamics, and a lot more. And it's not something that you want to Google because you never know what you're going to come across on the internet, and sifting through secular crap is just not something you have time for. That is why I created the Orgasm course for Catholic women. This course walks you through everything from anatomy to mindset to theology to the partner aspect of sex and orgasm, and it is all deeply rooted in Catholic truth. There is nowhere else that you can get all the good stuff and none of the bad stuff. Check out the Orgasm course for Catholic women at vinesinfullbloom.com/orgasm or click the link in the show notes.
Okay, so like Kathleen, I'm going to give her some loving advice here.
Loving.
Okay, so sleep right now might not be working. But you can eat well. You can.
The protein thing is such a struggle. And honestly, it's funny because I made protein muffins this morning for my kids.
Good job.
And I ate one of them. But I will say that it's funny because we always have protein powder in the house because my husband drinks it every morning. But here's my financial stress and worry, right? Is I say, if I start drinking that every morning, then we go through it twice as fast. And those are expensive. Like he gets the huge things of like muscle milk,
Those are
so
big.
then it's like, they're big and they're like $60 a pop. So I was like, well, if I start drinking every day, we go through it twice as fast, we spend the $60. Is it logical? Like, because like then I'm spending groceries or money on other groceries anyway. So why not just like make it that and then not make it other things? But the point is I hardly eat breakfast. If I'm not eating breakfast, I don't have to spend any money. This is not healthy and no one should do it. Okay? No
do
one
not listen
should
to
do
Kathleen's advice right
it.
here.
I am in my late 30s and I'm still in survival mode. I don't know. Like mid 30s. I'm in my mid 30s. I feel like I'm coming
Eat
up on my late
breakfast.
30s. But that's another thing I will say is that I am noticing, I don't know, maybe it's just amongst like people I know, but a lot of us who are in this like mid to late 30s / early 40s, we're all kind of seem to be in the same boat where I think our kids are getting a little older. We kind of have kids we're kind of in like both camps. Like we still have little kids, but we also have older kids, which means we now have like extracurriculars and like addition to like keeping the little people alive, like all of the, like, it's just like we've got a foot in both camps, And so I think a lot of us are kind of in survival mode and we're all struggling with low libido. I will say that, like every single one of us, I mean, and again, this is like the people that I know and talk to. So I don't think this is an uncommon thing that we're
it's so
like,
common.
Experiencing. It's so common, but it doesn't mean we can't do something about it. And I am awful about developing new habits. I'm so bad at developing new habits. I also struggle with executive functioning. So it's like the planning to like that's required to get yourself out of the rut and to start those new habits is very overwhelming to me, right? Like, are they impossible things to fix? No. But if you're like me, it's hard. It's really hard to fix that. So I feel like, kind of, we need people to hold us accountable. That's what I will say. And honestly, like, I've kind of gone to my husband to hold me accountable, but then I get like super resentful that he's holding me accountable. So I feel like I need a friend.
Do I need to hold you accountable, Kathleen? Do I need to be like texting you every morning? Did you eat breakfast?
My husband has an actual ADHD diagnosis. He has like since he was a teenager, right? But like he's like he takes his meds and he's just a normal functioning human. Like so he's able to do the things that he needs to do to like institute change. I don't have an ADHD diagnosis. So I'm not on any medication and I struggle with the accountability. So I like see him as like thriving and I'm just like trying to constantly keep my head above water. So when he's trying to hold me accountable, I'm like, shut up. Not you. I get so resentful. And again, it's not logical. I shouldn't get that way. He's like trying to help me. And I don't know, but I feel like I need a friend. I need someone that's not him succeeding in front of me to hold me accountable. And maybe it is like a group of people, you know, like, I don't know I don't know, Ellen, maybe it's just you. Maybe you just need to hold me accountable.
I don't know. Maybe we need to create like a WhatsApp group for listeners of the podcast
who are in my boat. Can we do that? That would be great. Let's do that.
Who want to like work on some of these things, work on eating well, eating breakfast. Maybe we'll just have an eating breakfast WhatsApp group. Did you get 30 to 40 grams of protein?
Did you eat breakfast? Do 2 cups of coffee count as breakfast?
No.
Okay. Then no. I had that 1 protein muffin and 2 cups of coffee and my vitamins.
Okay. Well, you know, vitamins. That's one thing.
Anyway.
All right. But let's circle back to we talked about, all right, you've should all over yourself about what you should have done last night. But what we really need to address is like ultimately what, you know, like why didn't you? And not in a condemning way, in a curious way. Because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to heal our sex life. I think that's what everybody listening to this is trying to have an incredible, amazing sex life. And we all have room to grow in this space. All of us. I constantly am just like run into issues and I'm like, what? I have already dealt with this, Lord. Like, why is this coming back?
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like, please don't think I've arrived or Kathleen has arrived.
Kathleen has not arrived. Kathleen is so far from the station. So far.
We've already established that in this episode. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Kathleen. You are like the butt of this episode.
It's okay. I am. Listen, I think I'm okay with the vulnerability because I just want everyone else to realize that like, you're not alone. This is you. Like, I'm literally doing a podcast about something that I am awful at. So, you know what I mean? We're all in this together.
But we need that. Like, we're not your role models, friends.
No, we're not. We're just friends on the journey.
Yep. That's it. All right. But we want to address that why. And part of that why might just be a very simple, I didn't want to. I had no desire to, right? And I think those 4 pillars of sleep, diet, stress management, and exercise, those are going to be major, major things to focus on in transforming that desire.
Yeah.
one more area to really think about is the mindset piece. If you are feeling kind of this like an ick factor around sex, if there's just still this like, oh, purity culture, like sex is still this bad thing or this dirty thing. If that is where your mindset is, then like, let's work on that. Fill your brain with goodness about sex. I love recommending Gregory Popcak's book, Holy Sex. Fantastic. And another one is just like, listen, Kathleen's got her copy right here. I literally have my copy right here too, because we were talking about this before we started recording.
I was looking through it last night, so it's like literally on my bed with me right now. Yeah. Shout out.
That's a phenomenal book. Just it really has some cool kind of like quizzes that you can take and kind of understand where you're at with mindset and things like that. I think it's really well written. But also like there's like 180 of these podcast episodes. Like just fill your ears with this podcast. Like we're always talking about the goodness and beauty of sex. And that is something ultimately, if that's where you're struggling, that can really, really help in that mindset portion. But then, so the last thing that I think is really important here, if we find ourselves saying that I should have done all this stuff, is we've got to take the pressure off. When we put that much pressure on ourselves to have sex, and like Kathleen, you were saying this earlier in the episode of like, it was a green day and I only have so many of those and I need to use them or else we're going to run into my period again, et cetera, et cetera. And that right there is a scarcity mindset. We've got this scarcity of available days. But like, you're a cyclical human, right? So yeah, your period's going to come, but then also another infertile period's going to come.
Right.
And then another fertile period's going to come. And then another infertile period's going to come. And then another you're going to be rotating through fertile and infertile periods if you're, healthily cycling. Now, if your cycle is all wonky, then let's take care of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And hormonal birth control is not going to help, right? Like go start charting with Creighton, get connected with a NAPRO doctor, like figure out what's going on with your cycle, and let's heal that. Or FEM, and FEM also has the FEM health arm of things.
Yes.
But if you're like generally normally cycling, we've got to switch that scarcity mindset of, I only have these like 4 days available. And then it's going to be a fertile period again. It's like, well, yeah, you might only have these 4 days right now, but you'll have them again.
Yeah.
And you'll have them again. And you'll have them again. Unless you get pregnant, and then it's all available.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So true.
Right. And so like, just like take that pressure off of yourself to have sex. And honestly, sometimes that's all we need to do. And then it's like, oh, I could totally have sex.
Yeah.
It's the same with like, this happens with orgasm too. If we have like a lot of pressure on ourselves to get all the way to climax, it's really, really hard to get all the way to climax. But sometimes if you just take the pressure off and say, it's not that big of a deal. I don't have to get to climax. I can just enjoy this.
Right. Yeah.
Then suddenly your body's like, oh, this is great.
That's really true. It's very true. Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I don't feel like I really had anything helpful to say. Except for...
You were our case study.
Yeah, exactly. That was the case study. Except for you're not alone. And, don't forget to, this is still practical, but don't forget to pray your way through this stuff, I think these are very common issues that, most women share for a period at some point or another. But just remembering as well that there is a spiritual component to this. Like, it's really important we address our physical habits that we address our overall health, right? Like, how are we doing? How are we functioning? Are we supporting our body, right? The answer is no. But also remembering that sex is not just a physical thing. It is a spiritual thing, right? So, and how we've talked about this in many episodes before, how marriage is under attack, right? Like the devil does not want our sexual union. It is way too powerful. It is way more powerful than he is. So when you are struggling in these ways, and this is something I'm constantly reminding myself of, we have to go to prayer as well. We have to address the physical, but we also have to address the spiritual. We have to ask God to help us. We have to ask for the grace to do what we need to do physically in order to support ourselves so that we can have healthy, enjoyable sex life, which is what he wants for us. And, maybe you've taken in a different message from purity culture. Again, right there with you. But ask him to heal that, that broken message that you may have received about sex. Ask him to heal it so that you can have the enjoyable sex life that he wants you to. Again, not perfect in any of this, just very much on the journey and things I'm learning along the way. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you listen to podcasts on a platform that gives you the option to rate or review, we'd love for you to do that because it helps us spread the word about the podcast. If you ever have questions, comments, or episode topic ideas, please reach out to us. We love to hear from you. You can reach out on Instagram or send us an email. Our email is in the show notes. Until next time.